Hi, it's Andy.
Hi, it's Dave.
Hi, it's Kirk.
Okay, so we are now, I've got this correct, we're in week 8. Not like what I said last week when I thought we were in week 8. We are in week 8 of the How to Meet Your Idols challenge. We've had a busy old week doing other stuff with reactions and everything else going on. So I don't know how far you guys got on with your meeting your idols, but I suppose the first thing we should do is check in with Andy as we go alphabetically and see how Andy got on with your meeting your idols this week.
Right, hello. Update time now. Last few days I've received emails from both Aaron Stainthorpe of My Dying Bride and Michael, Liv Kristine's manager. Haven't read them yet, they're both sitting there in my inbox. Leslie, which one should I open first?
Liv Kristine.
Okay, let's have a look at what Liv Kristine's manager has to say. What I did was sort of touch base and said, before I go into too much detail regarding research, is there any period of Liv's career or life that she would rather not talk about, just so that we don't have any embarrassing situations during the interview. Let's see what he has to say. Andy, thank you very much for your mail. All is well is here. I hope you are well too. Liv will not wish to talk about Leaves' Eyes atrocity and Alex Kroll. Skype info is attached. Okay. Well, I did kind of think that would be the case for obvious reasons. And I'm guessing Skype information is the contact and the way we set up the video interview. So good. I'll leave that to the experts in the team, David and Kirk, and they'll join me on that interview, which will be great. Let's see what Aaron has to say regarding that. He asked me again what the format is, what we're doing, how it's going to work. I said, in an ideal world, it'd be great for us to come up and see you in Yorkshire, sit around the fire at one of your local pubs, but in reality it's obviously going to be a Zoom type meeting. Let's see what he has to say. Morning Andy, many thanks for the birthday wishes, it was a blast. Regarding the chat, are we thinking day or evening for the Zoom? Well, I think I'll leave it down to whatever suits him. Aaron did say they are busy writing the brand new My Dying Bride album, so I'll go back to him and say, give us a day, give us a time, we'll make it work.
Okay, so that's pretty positive news, Andy. You've got 2 responses back, both seem pretty up for it. With not sure if we want to do the interview on Skype, really. We probably want to see if they can go onto a Zoom, as Skype's not as reliable as far as it. But if that's the only way that they're prepared to do, I guess that's the right thing to do with Liv and obviously and with Aaron as well. So I'm quite happy to go up there. We'll go up to his local pub and hang out with him for if you fancy it and do a drink. But have you had anything further since your update?
Only from Aaron's to say we will be doing a video call. You know, that's sort of confirmed. He just asked sort of, would it be weekends, evenings or whatever? I said, well, we'll obviously work around you, but I did say probably a weekday evening would suit us best, but we will obviously do whatever we can that suits him best. Regarding Liv, I can contact Michael, her manager and husband, and say the best format for us would be perhaps Zoom, see if they're obliging to do that. If that's what your technical experience tells you. I mean, I've never done Skype, but I'd imagine it's exactly similar, but you're saying sort of different in the way of the recording side of things, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think it's just a little bit more glitchy. It's not quite as great with the bandwidth I found with Skype. So
okay,
but if it really comes to it, I'm sure we can make it work.
I'll put that to them. I mean, the only other thing I've been doing is sort of thinking about sort of questions for Liv, and I'm going to sort of do a bit more research. I need to touch base with Dave Tattum and probably say early New Year we'll do a Zoom interview with him. Still nothing back from Napalm Death, and I think I'll not pursue Iron Maiden any further.
Fair enough. Well, we can all try and give you a hand now, because we're in the final third now, so we can also try and pick up with each other offline if anyone can come up with any ideas of how to help. Cool. So you're doing all right. You're doing better than the rest of us.
I wish I didn't think. I pray for forgiveness. I'm all those things. Run, I see. The distrust, the violent rush, picks adrenaline. Am I blind? right time. Will I ever feel satisfied? There's a roller coaster ride. For me, I find that there's trust. The violent rush makes the adrenaline in my blood. That there's trust. That violent rush makes the adrenaline in my blood. Can you help me find the simple things I need? That I'm told are free. Unlock me. My spirit drives me. Am I unclean? Please, please, set me free. What do I think alike? Will I ever feel satisfied? A game of sacrifice. There's nothing inside. That there's trust. A violent rush. Adrenaline in my Can you captivate? Let me feel free to choose, to love, to be. Show me how to love with no expectations. An open heart, not scared to lose. Oh. So I can be good and I can be saved. Somewhere between heaven and hell. Yes, all those fine things. I wish I didn't think. I pray for forgiveness. I'm all those things. Run, I say. That is trust. The violent rush makes adrenaline in my Let it be me. To choose, to love, I can't change.
The rest of us. So I guess it's to find out how I did. So for the last week, what was my plan? I guess for last week. Okay, so we are in week 8 or episode 8 of our How to Meet Your Idols challenge, and yeah, it's kind of starting to get to you now. I think it's getting to all 3 of us. So from week 1, I think I approached all of my idols, all 5 of them. From week 1, I sent messages to all of them, and I've been doing it. I mean, we're talking about week 8, so that's 16 weeks. So we've been doing it every 2 weeks. We've been doing episodes to give us sort of time, which is why we're releasing the episodes in a weekly format, but we were doing 2-week gaps to give ourselves time to sort of approach it, i.e. the 6-month period. Yeah, and I think it's just been a real challenge, because I think you send messages each week, you send them to Instagram, you send them to emails, you send them to Facebook Messenger, because really, where else are you going to send it? If you've got no way of actually speaking directly, I got the message back from the PR company for Robb, Flynn. Had no joy with people like Sully, Erna, the warning, which I actually thought the warning would be relatively easy to get some sort of response back, whether it be on the Patreon, which I'm a member of their Patreon, or Facebook. Now I know they're touring, I know Robb Flynn's touring, I know Sully, Erna and Godsmack are about to go out on tour, so I get that they've got lots on, and the general gist of what I've had so far back is from the PR company is they won't speak to small channels, and I get that. But I think all I really wanted was someone to say we're not interested, leave it. We're not going to do anything with you, because then at least you can kind of go, okay, there's no chances there, and you can almost put it to bed and put all your efforts into it, but just not get anything back. And I know, I'm sure there'll be people in the comments down below that will sort of mention and sort of say that, well, what did you expect? Do you really think that they're going to respond to every message? And I get that. I do generally get. I'm not holding it against them in any shape or form. But I just find it odd because a lot of these channels that are now big, I mean, it's weird when you then get to like the bigger music channels, the bigger rock channels that started out relatively small when they first started. They had the bigger backing behind them. Maybe they would have struggled to get some of their bigger names. Now the bigger names are quite happy to work with them. It's just the nature of business, I guess. But yeah. So what's my plan for this week? I guess. Well, my approach is to go on Instagram again, go onto messengers. I'm just going to be completely blunt and completely honest. And I'm going to put a very I'll cover it off in the kind of catch up bit which we do with the guys after this little video runs, but I'm going to write an email to, or messages to them, just kind of putting it all out there and seeing if brutal honesty is going to be the way to do it. Maybe if it makes them chuckle, maybe I'll get some sort of response back. Stay with the guilt tripping, I guess, a little bit, trying to get them to think about, hopefully kind of like almost, we know there's nothing in it for them, so we're kind of expecting them to do us, we're asking them to do us a favour, so we've got to come across in that way, I think. And I guess from next week, when we go into weeks 9, 10, 11 and 12, the final 4 episodes, which is the final 8 weeks running up, I'm going to be trying to help maybe the other guys who are struggling, the same as myself, and maybe we can all kind of approach different ways, but I'm sure we'll talk about that on the rest of this video. But that's kind of my plan for this week.
Right, okay, that's interesting then. So you've used a more personal technique or tone of language in the email, you're putting on the heartstrings. So has that brought you any success? You put that into practice?
Right, so I'll read out the actual message that I sent them. This was all into Instagram. So I sent this to everyone from PitchShift because no one was getting back to me. John from PitchShift had gone silent. I'd sent him a few follow-up messages. Nothing came back. So I said, this is how I responded. Hi, it's me again with my weekly begging message. We're at week 8 out of our 12-week challenge to interview our musical idols. And with just 5 weeks, including this one, to go, we are sitting out 3 of our 15 chosen idols with interviews completed. I kind of blagged that one a little bit. I'm pretty certain I won't be able to get the interview with you or get a video of you answering some of my questions from our channel. But as it's a challenge, I have to send you at least 1 message every week, or maybe even 2. Don't worry, in another 5 weeks or so, you won't have to have any more messages about interviews from me. However, if you do have 5 minutes and fancy answering a few questions and send me a short video, that would be awesome. Anyway, mustache, more rock stars to message and beg for interviews. As the almighty Crusher would say, rock hard, rock heavy, rock animal. So that's what I wrote.
Desperation.
Pitch Shifter came back and went, please resend the interview questions.
Oh, wow. It worked. It worked.
So,
that is utterly desperate. If you can tell you've never worked in a sales job. You would never approach anyone like that. But hey, so they said, please resend the interview question.
Yeah, and then I sent him the messages. I sent him the questions back over. Hadn't had anything for a couple of days, so I sent him another one. Hi, John. Hope you're well. Just wanted to check if you received the interview questions I emailed over. And then I made a note about the fact that the original ones I sent him were actually just my notes, because when I opened up the attachment, they were just my bullet point notes. They weren't actually the questions. So I said, let me know if they've come through and I can double check the address. And he says, yeah, got them. Now just trying to figure out how I can do this for you. So I sent him a couple of suggestions. I did, however, send a follow-up to... so I sent that message straight after I did my setup, that first message I sent. And I hadn't heard back from anyone else. So I thought, I'll give it another go. I'll follow up on that message and see what happens. So... okay, so this is what I said to Rob. Hi, Rob. I know, it's me again. I must be like that annoying fly that buzzes around your head. Anyway, I'd love you to record a short video up message answering a couple of questions, and then I'll disappear and leave you alone.
I like I don't know if I like the facetious tone, but it worked for me on the pitch shifter one. This is going to Rob Flynn, this one.
On
Instagram.
Yeah. He said, if you answer a few more questions, then I'll disappear peacefully into the night. But if not, it'll only be a few more weeks of me just sending you messages of this Meet Your Idols challenge, and it'll all be over and done with. I'd love to know your reason for the change. And then I said a quick question, which was, I'd love to know your change of image from the Through the Ashes, and whose idea was it? Like the albums of, because I like the albums of Burning Red and Supercharger. I don't mind the image changes, but I know it was something that fans were divided on. So I just thought, I'm trying to make them read it and either laugh or at least react to it in some way. So I'm just going down that route. So I thought I've done like 10 messages to each of them, all going, we would like to have this interview with you. And I thought, you know what, let's just go down a completely different approach and see if anything like that works. Even if I get guys, can you stop messaging me? You're really annoying. I'm going to block you. I'll be like, all right, fair enough. At least I got a response. But that's where I'm up to. So I've got to follow up with Pitch Shifter, and I'm going to continue doing my harassment of rock stars for the next.
I admire what you're doing, and I fear that I might have to do that when I start to put all my effort into working out how to contact Robert Smith. But yeah, hey, at the end of the day, it's a challenge. You're being resourceful. Okay, with you, it's a numbers game, isn't it? You're being repetitive. You're already aware that could annoy them, and you've used humor in there, and it's yielded a result. So I think we've learned there that can actually prove to be a fertile approach.
It wouldn't be the first approach, but it's my desperation last approach now.
The begging mode.
I'm going into full begging mode. just literally going down that route now. So
you wouldn't be able to do that with Alip Bartalo, would you?
No, I'm still trying. I'm still trying down that route, but I'm going through his PR company, but I'm getting no luck. So that's where I am anyway. But where I am anyway. But I think we should find out how you got on Kirk. Now, you've got a slightly different approach this week. Do you want to explain what we're going to go watch in a second?
Yeah, so we always wanted to educate our viewers, didn't we? To give them an insight into how certain parts of the music industry work. And so I thought, let's try and get some tips from Jasmin Lamy, who works at the Noise Cartel, which is essentially England's premier heavy metal and hard rock PR company. So I just wanted to find out what she thought about our documentary idea, any creative tips you could give us, and also explain how you get into that industry and how it works and why it's important to be an intermediary in between the artist, the media, and their audience.
Cool. Let's go check that out.
Hi. So today we've got Jasmin Lamy, who is a member of staff at one of the most prominent rock and metal PR companies, the Noise Cartel. And you've got some big labels that you handle as your clients. And formerly you worked for Hold Tight, didn't you? The company set up by James Monteith of Tesseract.
I did indeedy.
Yeah, so we're probably going to mention that, but I'm just going to start for our viewers. Can you just tell us what a PR company does in the context of the music industry?
So the PR company it's basically the middleman between the artist and the press. And sometimes there's an extra layer in there. So you'd have the artist, management, the label, the PR, and then the journalist and the press. So obviously you've got all of those layers. Those will be more likely for the really big bands that kind of need that many people. But if you've got a smaller band who aren't signed, then sometimes you don't have any of that in the middle, and you can be so I started out in journalism, so I know exactly where you're coming from. So sometimes you can just reach out straight to the band and they'll be happy to get something set up for you. But a lot of the time it's the PR that the journalist needs to go through in order to get to the artist that you're trying to speak to. And sometimes us PRs have ideas of great PR campaigns or press stunts to do, but that's essentially we're essentially the middleman, basically.
Yeah, I suppose the other thing people would be interested in then is, you said that you started off in journalism, and I know that you write for Distorted Sound, and you've got quite an impressive CV, I may say, of artists that you've interviewed, especially contemporary artists in rock. So how did you go from that? How did you get into the PR music industry? What's the pathway?
So I studied music journalism for 3 years at BIM in Brighton. And to be honest, I had a really hard time in my personal life during that time. So I didn't take any of the opportunities I should have. And it wasn't until the last 3 months of uni that I decided to get my shit together and claw back everything I'd not taken advantage of. So I moved back home to Jersey in the Channel Islands, where I'm from, worked my ass off for a year in retail, saving, and I was like, well, there's nothing here in Jersey, music industry wise, so I have to bite the bullet and just move to London. Didn't know anyone, didn't have a job lined up. I had $5,000 to my name for savings, had no idea how long it was going to take me to find another retail job just to make ends meet. But honestly, I know lockdown was so hard for a lot of people, but for me, it was a huge blessing in disguise. I was put on furlough from a retail chain company, so I didn't have to do anything for 3 months. I was living with my uncles rent-free, so I was saving a lot of money too. And during those 3 months, I had my own blog called Freak Magazine. And I was also doing like YouTube interviews as well. And it was literally just from there. Because I had so much time, I was just taking anything that came my way, messaging any band. They might not have gotten back to me, probably had no chance in the world, but a lot of the time they did. And then I just made a shit ton of contacts. And through doing that, I got an internship at LD Communications and got to do the download pilot. And straight off the back of the download pilot, I had an interview with Hold Tight, who were originally looking for an unpaid intern, offered me a full-time job straight away off the bat. So I owe a lot to them as well. But then I worked for them for a year, and then Adam at the Noise Cartel reached out to me personally and asked if I wanted to join them, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go for that.
They're the big name in my experience. You know, I've only been doing this for 2 years, and when I was dealing with you at Hold Tight, obviously I was dealing with Noise Cartel, and then when I saw that you joined there, I was like, that is perfect. And that's before this documentary came about. Because one thing I will say, I did notice when you joined Hold Tight, you were just so enthusiastic. I just wanted to review every record you put my way, just for that alone. And you didn't mind. You know, you know me. I'm just going to give an honest appraisal of an album. I never make it personal. If there are negatives there, I'll still try and give some constructive feedback. I don't want to be patronizing when I do that. And I just loved when I would receive your mail in my inbox. And now you've joined the Noise Cartel, and Century Media are clearly one of the big clients, aren't they, that you look after? And Adam Segier, so he's headhunted you then, has he? How did he find out about the great work you were doing? Do you think he just saw your presence on social media channels and thought, oh, she clearly is making great contacts, she'll be an asset for my company?
So it's actually a funny story. Like, this industry is so tiny. When I was applying for music industry jobs, I applied for the junior radio plugger role at the Noise Cartel. So I would have been working under Nelly, and I got into like the final 2, I think. And like, it didn't go for me in the end, but they absolutely loved me. And it was about a year and a half between that first interview and me actually joining them. And in that time, you know, I would always bump into them at festivals, at gigs. And they went through a couple of radio pluggers, and they were looking for another one not too long ago, but I just joined Hold Tight. So I was like, no, I can't do that. And then Paris left recently for the press role. And obviously I'd been doing press at Hold Tight. So when Paris left, she was like, look, it's a no-brainer. You need to at least ask Jasmin. So I wasn't surprised by the phone call, but it did happen a lot sooner than I was anticipating.
And look how far you've come. Like you said, lockdown was a blessing in disguise, because you had the income from furlough, and then you obviously living rent-free in London. And you've just got to do that, haven't you? Take any opportunity you can get. And I just love how, if you think about it, 2020 then, you didn't even have a foot in this industry. 18 months later, they're interviewing you, you know, saying, come and join us. So what have you had a chance to glimpse what it's like in the world of major labels? I mean, we just don't come across them now in rock and metal, really, do we? You've got obviously bands like Mastodon, Avenged Sevenfold. They're on what you probably say legacy contracts from 10 years ago, and they're not going to get dropped because they're great bands, great stadium pullers. What have you managed to glimpse from the major labels in the work that you've done? What's that industry like? Is there a footway to Sony BMG? I mean, what would the job even look like?
So it's a weird one. Like, I grew up on bands like Iron Maiden and Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue. And especially coming from Jersey, which is such a small, closed-minded island, you know, the music industry was incredibly different in the 80s. And for so long, that was my preconception of what it would still be like. And for a very, very long time, I was also closed-minded about music. But obviously, coming to London and actually immersing myself in the industry and just chatting to people, you know, labels don't have the money they used to have. And especially because I'm sure you're the same as well, like, you didn't get into music to be a journalist. You got into it as a fan first, as a consumer. And like, the whole consumer side of it is so different now as well. And it's a lot harder, I think, for every single section of the music industry, not just like journalism, not just PR, not just being a band especially, but even like labels, I guess, are also trying to find new ways, and it's a lot of experimenting now and finding what works and what doesn't work. And that's a big thing about the industry that a lot of people kind of like don't get unless you're in it. It's literally just a shot in the dark all the time, whether you're a journalist reaching out to a band or a PR, or if you're a PR reaching out to a journalist that might not want to go for the idea that you've got, and vice versa. Or if a PR and a journalist have a really good idea, and then you've got to take it to the label and be like, hey, we want to do this, X, Y, and Z is up for it, then the artist or management might say no. So yeah, that's
funding. Yeah, you're right, that funding's just not there now, is it? I mean, I'll give you an example. I was speaking to Aaron Stainthorpe of My Dame Bride, and he was saying for their 1996 album, Peaceful Records, sent him all around the world. Latin America, I think it shifted 75,000 copies, which wasn't a lot of sales in 1996. You wouldn't be considered a big band. But now, when I see these documentaries like Spotify, for example, so they take 30%, the other 70% is divided between the artist and the record label, isn't it? And the artist often just gets hardly anything if they don't own the publishing rights or the masters. And I saw a stat. There was a band, I remember them from the late 90s, called Eve 6, and they're a pop punk band. I weren't really into them, but they have a song that has been streamed 40 million times on Spotify, and they've seen no money from it because of the recoupables, on whatever major label, the terms of the major label contracts of the 90s. So royalties, they're still clawing back from a contract that they signed in 1998. So we hear more about that than the indie artists, whether they're emo rappers or independent black metal bands, whatever they are. Those that have somehow managed to build a following and own their publishing rights and their masters, they can make a steady income from it. But fewer people are becoming millionaires now as a result of getting into the charts and shifting a platinum album. It just doesn't happen now, does it? Even Adele probably didn't. I don't know how many would she have shifted. If any artist could shift 1 million records now, that would be absolutely phenomenal, given the way we consume music, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly. Why does Eve 6 ring a bell? Sorry, that was.
I think they were one of those bands. In the late 90s, you had.
Who were their members?
I don't know. I actually don't know. I remember buying that on single because I'd read about it in Kerrang magazine or Rock Sound. And if anything, I put it on recently with a friend, and we were kind of laughing at it. Like the dyed orange hair and like the fluorescent green that you used to see in all those videos. But that was just an example, of
yeah. I know it was like such an odd band, and I'm like, but that rings a bell. Why does that ring a bell? But no, yeah, like the music industry is so weird now. Like back in the 80s, no one could have heard of you. You could have been playing clubs to like 50 people, but if a label liked you, they could give you like 2 million advance to make a record, and you would still only be playing to 50 people. Like they would take that chance, and a lot of the time it would pay off, but you don't know that. And nowadays you could be selling out Brixton Academy and still not be able to make a living off of music. It's so strange, like how everything's completely flipped on its head. And that's probably, a lot of that is probably to do with the way of consumerism, because a lot of people, like I only got Spotify during lockdown because I'm an albums gal. I love buying CDs.
So bad.
It's just like flipping through the inside sleeve, reading the lyrics, album artwork, love it. But a lot of people, especially my age and younger, and even older, like being in the music industry, like the thing with Spotify is it's just so easy. But then that means that, you only listen to a single and you don't have to give anything to the artist. And like, it's annoying because it's easy, but then it's really shitty for the creators. But I think that's probably got something to do with it, because obviously you don't have to shift you can't shift X amount of CDs or vinyl because it's a lot more
There
expensive.
aren't enough people like you and I. You still have the taste.
Yeah,
of
exactly.
vinyl, isn't it?
Exactly. So that's probably like literally labels. Well, labels are still making a lot of money, but not for their artists.
Yeah, but Spotify has actually helped them. If you look at the major labels, they're raking it in because of especially with those legacy artists, with those contracts and who owns the masters. Can I bring it round then to that? So, in the changing landscape, or should we say, the permanently changed landscape of the record industry, why is it important for artists and record labels to use PR companies? Why do they like to do that?
It just hands out the workload, really. Like, it's our specialty. Like, if you're an artist, you've got so many other things you've got to think of to be doing, not just writing, recording, getting gigs, playing live, designing merch, shifting merch, your social media content. Artists have enough on their plate, and it's like that kind of thing that you don't want to do half a job, like you might have an evening to yourself once a week that you go and do PR for your band, but you're going to get a lot more results if someone's doing that for you as a full-time job. And it's the same for the labels as well. Like labels will also be doing, seeking out producers or helping you find mixers for your content, and also like booking tours. It just leaves a lot more space because when you're an artist, you don't get into it for doing socials. You get in it because you want to write music, because you want to play music. So it leaves a lot more space for musicians to be able to do what they love. And when you do what you love, most of the time the output shows with that kind of thing. So it just means that and also for me, it's a great feeling when I've got a band that I'm working with that I absolutely adore, that I think more people should be hearing about, and I get to do that for my full-time job. Yeah, I'm sure as well. I'm like, hey Kirk, here's a band, they're amazing, please write about them.
Yeah, you've definitely put some good stuff my way as well. And now that you're at Noise Cartel, I like a lot of those artists. In fact, just before this, I was listening to that Century Media band Wilderun, that progressive black metal band, a bit similar to Opeth, and that's definitely going to make the Scream Blast Repeat top 10. I think that album, it's just so good. Voivod, there's so many names on there that I listen to, and in fact, one of the other chaps, Andy, who's doing this documentary, he's got Barney Greenway of Napalm Death as one of his idols. So I said, well, it's meant to be a challenge, so I can't really help him. But I said, I do know the PR company that handle the affairs. But that leads me on to the next question. So when I started this, out of the three of us, so there's me, there's Dave, who has a YouTube channel, like he does these reaction videos. I think he's got 155,000 subscribers. So I know him through the Hertfordshire rock and metal scene. And then Andy, who's got the biggest CD collection I've ever seen, and he's a musician. So three different backgrounds. So I thought I'm going to have an advantage here because I know people like you. So my question is, once you get to that final point, and then the PR person says, oh, thank you, we'll keep you on file, but this person is not in campaign, what else can I do from there if the idol is not on social media?
I know that obviously the whole point of the documentary is it 6 months?
Yeah.
Most of the time, you've got a bigger time frame to play with, and also the thing is, when you think of it from the artist's perspective, when they're in campaign mode, they know. Well, most of them know that part of the job is doing interviews in order to promote whatever content they've got coming out. And that's a 24/7 thing. I know you and I do journalism for hobbies, and then we've got the full-time job during the day, but at least we can choose at 5 o'clock to maybe sit in front of the TV instead. But with musicians, like, there is such a high demand, especially like nowadays in the age of social media, there's such a high demand for all, well, people in general, to be available 24/7. And, you know, like, that is the least we can do. Like, right, we know X, Y, and Z wants to chat with this person, and when they're ready to do that, then we'll be able to see what we can do. Sorry. But that's the thing with PR, is like, that is most of the time it's just shouting into the void if we're trying to get stuff. And it's the same the other way around as well. Like, when we're trying to explain to the label or the management company that we think it would be beneficial for them to do an interview with whoever it is, you know, at the end of the day, people can just say no if they're like having a really shit day. But obviously when it's personal like this as well, you can kind of be like, hey, look, you were a fan of music once, still are. Like, you started out as a fan of music once. Like, this is what everyone else is like. Maybe you could put aside 30 minutes of your day to make a new friend and make someone happy. But
there's no reason why they should do that, is there? And I'll make it clear, I'm not frustrated by that either, because I have learned something there. I never looked at it. It's a 24/7 thing. But one of the people on the list for Dave is Robb Flynn of Machine Head, who's also an idol of mine. The PR company got back to us, and you know, when you get a response, it almost feels like a success.
Any response is a great response.
Yeah, exactly. And it does make sense. Think of it from his point of view, right? So Robb Flynn, he's available on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. He does TikTok. He does every Friday when they're not on tour during lockdown. He was doing live sets, Electric Happy Hour, and he does his own podcast. So he's readily available for fans, and it would set a bit of a precedent if he just said to 3 random people in England, oh yeah, I'll do a private chat with you and you can put it out there in the public domain. It doesn't make sense for him to do that, does it? So I was thinking, that's one of the questions of this. What legitimacy do I have as an editor of an online music publication that's got a very small following? That's essentially one of the questions. So yeah, why would anyone agree to do it if they think it's just a personal capacity? And they need to look at the numbers, don't they? Yes, they're going to do an interview with Rock Sound or Kerrang or BBC Radio. Of course you would. You're going to get more exposure. If it's a small webzine, you need to be persuaded of the merits. So that's part of the challenge as well. What would you do, though, if you were in my position? Take Robb Flynn as an example. And I've said he's on all the social media channels. How would you approach it if someone set you a challenge in 6 months to try and interview him?
Well, I mean, you're totally right there. Like, me, myself, coming from a journalism background as well, like, I'm, with my anxiety too, I'm very much like, why would anyone want to talk to me when they've got their own lives and their own shit going on, kind of thing. So like, I totally know how that feels. But I mean, obviously you've given yourself 6 months to do this, and like you say, people like Robb Flynn are readily available for fans on Twitter and Facebook and whatever, but that's always something that like they can choose to do in their own time at their own pace, I assume. So I guess, like, obviously I don't know how often Robb Flynn checks like Facebook comments or comment section in his TikToks or whatever, but like a lot of opportunities can come from just reaching out in any way way not constantly, but like, with like enough,
by being persistent and keep saying, did you get my email?
But I mean, like, it's this is the thing as well. Like you say, like, obviously Screen Blast Repeat is a webzine that might not have the numbers behind it to convince someone like a label. So you can't use that angle. So you've got to find an angle that you think is going to work personally for who it is you want to interview. You know, like, you might have one agenda for one musician, but that might not convince another musician. So, I mean, that's just the thing about being a journalist is finding the common ground with someone that you want to interview and personalizing it, and then reaching out with whatever personalized agenda you have, and hoping that you can catch a fish with that hook.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Because I'm going in with the pitch. We are doing a documentary, so there is going to be some content with this. There is some legitimacy that one of us does this, on a daily basis, reviews music. But yeah, I was really enthusiastic when I started, and then Adam at the Noise Cartel, when he set me up with Tom Gabriel Fisher, Celtic Frost are my all-time favorite metal band. So that's going ahead. I just need to confirm it with Tom. As I say, that would be like you interviewing Steve Harris from Iron Maiden. That is my equivalent. I'm really nervous about that, actually. So I have had one stunning success, but what I did for that is because we've now launched the Screen Blast Repeat YouTube channel. The first video I did is part of this series called SBR Icons, and I just did a 7-minute summary of Thomas Gabriel Fisher and his works in Celtic Frost and Hellhammer and Triptychon. And I think Adam showed him that, and he thought, well, okay, he's doing something. This is content in the public domain. And then I actually did a video review of the new Machine Head album, and I've done Robb Flynn as part of that series, and said to Dave, who's got him on his list of 5, maybe go in at this angle. But the one I'm really focusing on at the moment is Spencer Sotelo, the singer from Periphery.
Oh yeah.
I think they were on the Noise Cartel. I don't know. How does it work? Is it like a rolling contract? What happens? Do you renegotiate every year with a band or with the?
Well, obviously Adam is the head of the Noise Cartel, and as far as I'm aware, the Noise Cartel used to have a retainer with Century Media, but as of recently, it's more of a pick and choose type thing now. But the great thing about reaching out to Adam for these things is he's obviously been in this industry for, I don't want to offend him with this number. I'm going to say like maybe 15 years. But he's also best mates with a lot of the musicians and artists we work with. Like, he's got phone numbers of people that you just wouldn't even think have a phone. So like you said there, like he showed someone your video, and that helps. Like, he's got this personal relationship with a lot of the musicians we work with, which, like when you came to me, I think I was like, I just started the Noise Cartel. It was like my first week, and I was like, I have no idea who works at this label I need to reach out to at this moment in time. So that's the nice thing about reaching out to people like Adam, is that he does have not just those contacts, but those relationships as well. And that obviously helps a lot with, people trust what he says. So if he's like, oh yeah, Kirk sound, this is going to be great, you're going to have a great time chatting with him. He's not just a PR. So a lot of bands, like he's a mate and a friend. And one day I also hope to get to that stage. But obviously at this moment in time, like I don't even think I've passed my probation yet, to be honest. I've not been there 3 months. But I also hope to get to that stage so that I can, make these things happen for people like you, because sometimes I still am in that position. And I'll say this, I always say this, and I'll say this again. A lot of people, most of the people that are in the industry, whether that's journalism, PR, label, musician, started out as fans of music. Like, we've all got those bands that, like mine would be Lizzie Hale of Hailstorm. She's probably the one person I probably wouldn't be able to keep my cool around. Yeah. But we've all been there. So one day I also hope to be able to, make things like that happen more often.
You're promoting that tour, aren't you, at the moment? So that's a dream project for you to be involved in, the Hailstorm tour that's is it early next year? I've noticed you're leading the campaign for that, aren't you?
Hailstorm are on Cosa Nostra PR. So that's that's not. I will be going, but
Okay, right.
that's not Noise Cartel domain as far as I'm aware.
I thought you were involved in that. So one question before I go there, I'm going to put you on the spot. If you had to choose 5 musical idols, you've already said one of them, Lizzie from Hailstorm. Is this even possible to answer? Can you think of 4 others that come to mind who you would just, you've just got a bucket list, five of your music idols you want to interview? So Lizzie's one of them.
Lizzie Hale is number 1. Joel O'Keefe from Airborne.
Yep.
Bruce Dickinson, make my dad really jealous. Fuck you guys. Yeah, Axl Rose or Duff McKagan.
What a difficult interview that would be, by the way. Can you imagine the preparation you have to put in for an Axl Rose interview?
I know. Well, thankfully that's not going to happen, so I don't need to think about that. And then finally, probably Satchel from Steel Panther.
Yes. Now that would be a fun one, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah. I think Lizzie Hale and Satchel are like my 2 musical crushes. So that would be a challenge for me, getting through an interview with Satchel and not getting all hot under the collar.
Did you see Lizzie on the Robb Flynn podcast? He's a big fan of Hailstorm.
Oh, I've not yet. I've not checked that out. I need to.
Get it on there. Yeah, do you know what? When I'm working in the day job from home, I'll often have the Robb Flynn podcast, or I just have YouTube on in the background. And that she came across really well in that. What a voice she's got. She's got to be the best female singer in rock at the moment. I can't think of anyone better. I know obviously you've got the Pretty Reckless and what's that band that they call? Is it Dorothy, the singer? And they've all toured together, haven't they? But clearly she is the absolute peak for me.
Lizzie Hale is just an absolute machine.
Yeah. I think she calls herself, didn't she? Is it Road Hog? I think is the term that they use. Is it Road Hog? So, yeah. Right. Well, on that note, thank you very much. It's been so helpful. Especially some of the things you were saying about different angles to go in at, and explaining to me and to our viewers of this documentary the importance of the PR companies, how you get into it, what the job entails. Can I just ask one more thing, actually? What is a radio plugger? I've got a vague idea of what that is. You said you went for a junior radio plugger role. What would that have entailed, that job?
It's the radio equivalent of a PR. Basically, I would have been doing what I'm doing now, but for radio, which just means sending pitches out to radio stations to play singles and also getting interviews on radio stations too. So it's the same job, but it's got a different title for a different area.
Yeah, wow. Okay, it sounds like there's so many different areas that you could go into and become a generalist. So you know all sectors of that job. So actually, I keep saying one last question. So, am I right in thinking in this industry, really what you would normally do after 3 years, 4 years is then go on and set up your own PR company? Is that a normal thing to do once you've got that experience? Would you want to go out and do it yourself?
Oh, I'm not sure about that. I'm very good at taking directions, but my anxiety would probably not let me run a whole company by myself like that. That's big pressure. But maybe not 4 years down the line, but we'll see how I feel in 15, 20 years.
Yeah. Well,
the music industry's changed by then.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Hey, hopefully we'll still be talking, and Screen Bust Repeat will still be going, and your contact list will just be infinite by then, I'm sure. And who knows, you might have interviewed Axl Rose. I guess the question is, would you want to?
That was really interesting. It was long, but it was interesting. I think you've covered a lot of topics in there. So what did you learn out of that, Kirk, for, I guess, going forward in your challenge? And what can we also take out of it, I guess?
First thing, she believes we're being overly ambitious, 6 months as a time frame. So she was surprised that we were thinking that might be possible to get all 15. Clearly, it's not going to be. The other thing is as well that there's the question of legitimacy, and what she said there is, especially the bigger artists, your Steve Harris, your Robb Flynn, your Robert Smith, Mike Patton, when they do press, that is 2 weeks of 24/7 engagement with various media outlets. So they know that those 2 weeks are just going to be busy, and a lot of them probably don't look forward to it. So when we come into this, 3 more obscure individuals, maybe not you, Dave, because of your success as a YouTube reactor and the high subscriber count you've got. But even with Screen Blast Repeat, I don't think it really does give me that much legitimacy. They'll just see that as a webzine, you know,
Right.
as you learned through Rob Flynn's PR contact as well. She said, yeah, if it was Rock Sound, if it was Kerrang, Metal Hammer, where there's a wider reach, he will consider it, but he's not going to give us the time, and we're not going to blame him for that either. It needs to be productive for him. So yeah, I felt it was interesting how she was explaining the types of jobs they do, you know, junior radio plug. I didn't even know what that was. So I learned a lot about that. And it is such a small industry. Notice how when she was headhunted from the Noise Cartel, they already knew her. They knew her from festivals. So yeah, I hope our viewers take something from that. And I've certainly learned a lot about the importance to have an intermediary to do it full time. Because if you're a musician and an artist, a creator, do you want to be devoting your time to Instagram, Facebook, maybe Twitch you might want to do because there's a performance element. So they are still essential, even though there's less money in the industry, to take crucial time away from the artists where they don't want to be wasting their time in marketing their product. They just want to write, create, release. So yeah, I think that industry is proved to be quite robust, you know, given the seismic changes that have happened in the last 20 years.
So one of the things we've got, I suppose, this coming week, apart from obviously still trying to contact the people that have not either got back to us or haven't confirmed anything yet, I guess the people that we have got conversations with, so Dave Tattum, Aaron, Liv, and Tom G, we've got to get some dates now. We've got to try and get something settled in as far as if it's evening. So I know for most of those guys, it'll be probably you two picking them up. Predominantly, I would say. So from you two, I'd suggest if you're kind of going back to all of those guys and trying to get a date in the diary, even if it's a date like in a month's time, 2 months' time, at least then we can kind of go, right, we've got that down, we've got it in the diary. Because at the moment, I think that's where we're at. We still haven't quite got to that bit yet.
Andy, just a quick one then. So Liv Kristine, we want to do that at my house, don't we? Were we talking around the 6th of December? I think some dates.
I will obviously check and let you know, but yeah, a long way back in the sort of introduction process before we got to the discussing about what topics were sort of not really to be talked about. A date was fixed. It's definitely early December. They even had an hour slot as well, so we'll need to sort of coordinate the times as well, because it was, I think, something like 5 p.m. Swiss time. But I will obviously confirm that with you, double check.
Yeah, 1 hour ahead on in Central Europe.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that one is sort of confirmed in the diary. As you said, David, yes, let's get the other ones sort of booked in, because all a bit sort of woolly at the moment with the other 2 guys I'm contacting.
Okay.
Well, that won't be a problem.
Let's get those in the diary, and then hopefully we'll have that to update for next week with some actual diary dates, and hopefully have some. Maybe I'll have the pitch shifter one by then. Who knows? Fingers crossed. But I'll be harassing people for another week and see what happens. Right, that's it for us on this week's episode. If you like the video, please do subscribe to this channel. It's very important. Please do like and please do share, and we'll see you on another video sometime very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right.